Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our new QEH showcased event. Thank you all very much for joining. My name's Laura Stafford-Allen. I just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping details before I hand you over to Paul Brooks. So on this evening's webinar, the chat function isn't available, but we do have a Q&A section, which is just at the top on your toolbar. If you click on that, any questions that you'd like to ask about the presentation and what you're seeing, please write them in there, and we will use them at the Q&A session at the end. Just a quick housekeeping note to say that the session is being recorded so that we can share the presentation with others who weren't able to attend. So we will make sure that the Q&A section is anonymous and we won't use anybody's names. So feel free to ask your questions in there, and I will pass you over now to Paul Brooks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura, and a huge welcome to everybody who's taken the time to join us tonight. And I hope you've got the same weather that we've got, and lovely weather that we've got in Kings Lynn. It's been a bit warm today, so but we're all ready. We're all ready to go. My name's Paul Brooks. I'm the Director of Estates and Facilities, and I'm also lucky enough to be the SRO for the new Queen Elizabeth Hospital here in Kings Lynn. Programme tonight is to take you through a few things. I'd like to talk to you about the progress so far, the plans for the future that we have, patient-focused design, and then it'll be your chance to ask us some questions. I'm not here alone. I'm joined by some members of the new hospital team, but I'll let those introduce themselves as they move forward. Next slide, please, Wayne. So progress so far. There's a great picture of our site showing where the helipad is at the moment. And if we move on to the next slide, I'll start to talk you through. Many of you will know, but many of you won't know, that 79% of the Queen Elizabeth here is affected by reinforced autoclave aerated concrete. And we're on year 5 of a 6-year programme to install fail-safes to our walls and ceilings. It's been a huge undertaking, I have to tell you. You can imagine working closely with our clinical colleagues to try and make sure the disruption that goes off during these works is kept to an absolute minimum. It's not easy, and we're really looking forward to the date when we can say that all the fail-safe works across the QE have been completed. We are in the process of undergoing a resurvey by a national team headed by Mott MacDonald, who some of you may have heard before. They're an internationally renowned team working with the government department and ourselves to reassess the safety implications for our hospital. As we know now that the new hospital programme won't be delivered till after 2030. And the original report said that the RAC work that we had and the safety measure we'd taken forward would be safe until that date. That's been built on a lot of the work that we've done, this trust and other trusts in the 7 that are affected by RAC, what we've learnt over those years, and also what Loughborough University have learnt about the effects of RAC and how actually the works we're doing may affect it. Of course, RAC isn't the only problem that a building of our age suffers with, and we'll be reviewing all of the systems we have across the infrastructure systems to make sure that we've got all of the information we need. It's really imperative that this building stays in the state it needs to be to deliver safe care past 2030 now, as we know, until we move into the new hospital. I think while we're doing that, maintaining and modernising to ensure we've got the best levels of care is really, really important. We can't let time stand still. Traditionally, if we do, you can get caught out, especially by your major infrastructure. So what we've tried to do is make sure we're moving forward in the time between now and when the new hospital opens. Next slide, please, Wayne. So I've picked 4 projects out, and actually one of the criticism or comments that we receive is, why are you still spending so much on the QE when you know you're moving into a new hospital? Well, there's 2 main reasons, really. One, we have to maintain it to a certain standard to make sure it's safe. And as we're doing the RAC works, we're making sure that we're looking at those critical infrastructure factors to make sure we are exactly doing that. And the services, along with the RAC services we've got, are fit for use that will take us beyond that 2030 deadline we had. But we're also using the opportunity to prepare us for the new hospital. The projects that I've picked out here, we'll start with the stroke garden, newly opened outside our rehabilitation space for patients who have suffered from stroke. And it's designed to aid recovery. Many of you may or may not know that actually it's proven that having a space like this during your recovery from a stroke can help you get better faster, and it can have a positive impact on how you may recover from a stroke. We know that when we move into the new hospital, we'll have areas where we can do this kind of specialist care. We don't have them at the QE at the moment. So with kindly donated by the charities, we're able to create this space. What it allows our staff to do is to deliver that type of rehabilitation care in this environment. So not only are we benefiting our patients as we move forward towards the new hospital, we're helping our rehabilitation staff use new skills, new training methods to make sure that we're taking all of these opportunities to deliver that care. The next one is the Central Sterile Services Department. Our new building is due to open in summer 2025, and it's a modular unit to relocate the essential services which cleans and decontaminates medical equipment. And why are we doing that, you ask? Well, actually, the current Central Sterile Services Department we have on site is the worst affected building for RAC. We can't fail safe that building because of the structure of the building and the way that it's set up in its clean room facilities. So we cannot stop going off site, and we cannot stop our operations. So we need to be ready. We've carried out some works in there that will keep the staff safe and keep the services going for a while, but we know that will only last really this year. So we're in the process of building a new unit. We're using modern methods of construction. The picture you see is 42 module units that are brought into site. It will be kitted out with new sterilisers, all of the type of things that we know we'll need. But what we will be doing is we've bought equipment that we know can be transferred at a later date if it needs to be. And actually the staff in there will be working with the latest equipment. Again, it's an opportunity for us to not only continue the services that we've got here in Kings Lynn, but also make sure our staff have a training opportunity as they move forward. I think I'll come on to the Community Diagnostic Centre. Many of you that are joined here from Kings Lynn area have probably seen the new building on there. This is a fantastic building. This building is designed to the latest HTM standards. It's got the latest equipment in for a district general hospital. So what we are doing now is we're stepping into that world of the new hospital building. The staff that work over there that we rotate between the site see a different type of building. The patients that come in will see a completely different environment for the type of services that we provide in MRI and CT within the hospital. Traditionally, MRI and CTs in some of the older buildings can be in strange places regards where they are around the departments. And we want to make sure that we've got an opportunity as we move towards the design of the new hospital to make sure those departments are in the right place where they need to be. And sometimes you only get one opportunity of that, and that's the building of a new hospital. But while we're doing that, we've got a state-of-the-art building on site that will remain to work alongside the new hospital when it comes online. And it brings me to Pedders Way, the end of life unit. 5 dedicated ensuite bedrooms in this unit help make care for patients more comfortable and dignified in the final days and hours of life. We came with this need because we don't have many single rooms on site, and anybody who's tragically been in that situation, an end of life situation, not only for the staff trying to deliver care at that time, but for those loved ones that are with them, it's very difficult to do. We know that curtains don't keep the sound out and don't make that environment. We took the opportunity to build ourselves 5 dedicated ensuite bedrooms, really, really close to the size that the new 100% single bedrooms in the new hospital will be. We've decorated them slightly differently. We've introduced the environment that's right for that type of patient care. What that allows our staff to do is work in that environment too. I think you'll know where I'm going by this one. Not only have we've improved that pathway for our patients at one of the most critical times of life or death, we've also provided a training ground for our staff to work in a slightly different way. We need to continue. The people of Kings Lynn deserve to have a hospital that's fit for purpose right up until we open the door of the new hospital. And that's what we're dedicated to do. And we're going to do that by spending our money as wisely as we possibly can to move towards it. Next slide, please, Wayne. I'd like to now introduce Peter Cox, who's the Programme Director. He'll take you through the plans for the future. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Paul. So yes, I have the honour of leading the great team that's going to develop and deliver the new QEH. And as Paul has articulated, the driving force behind our new hospital is about safety. It's plain and simple. As Paul said, it's an absolute priority, is to get rid of the RAC completely. We need a hospital that is safe, secure, and is built to last. So, but we're not just tackling RAC. What we're doing is taking that opportunity to do things better. So the new hospital will be designed to meet the latest national and healthcare specific building standards. It will be energy efficient, helping us to move towards the net zero carbon footprint, but it will be built with the future in mind. That's enough space and the right infrastructure to handle the growing needs of our community. We also want to make sure the new hospital improves the experience for everyone who uses it. That means better spaces for care, more efficient layouts for staff, and more welcoming environment for patients and visitors. And beyond our walls, we're aiming to support the wider health economy, wider health system in our region, making a positive impact on how care is delivered across the board. And I've just realised I didn't say slide, please, Wayne. Thank you. So these are our overall objectives, which I've just summarised. So yes, it is about replacing RAC, but it's also about building a hospital that's fit for the future, and also it's safer, greener and better for everyone. So what do you think it could look like? Slide, please, Wayne. I got it right that time. So I'll just leave this up for a few seconds so that you can absorb it. And as Paul and Laura said, we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So happy to take questions on this. So, as you can see, our preferred way forward is to rebuild the new QEH on the existing surface car park. And I don't think you can, I'm pointing to it, sorry, because you can't see my pointer. So on the left-hand side, as it says, is our multi-storey car park, which is one of our enabling funds, which I'll talk about later. And before that, we need to relocate the helipad. The existing buildings of the endoscopy and the CDC will remain, and there is some other retained estate that we'll be using for offices. So the concept that you see here has been designed by our market leading architects, BDP, to the latest national design standards, which is Hospital 2.0, along with the work that we've done with our clinical and operational staff over the last couple of years. Slide, please, Wayne. So just to reiterate, this is a concept design, and it will be subject to further internal and wider stakeholder consultation, as well as approval by the local planning authority, of course. Tony later after me will articulate the environmental impact of the new QEH in a much better way in a few minutes, but I just wanted to show you the hospital in a bit more detail, and that the single rooms of the wards in the four fingers are supported by a single spine of communication and wayfinding. The main hot areas, the A&E, diagnostic and theatres, will be contained in a central hub, which ensures the most efficient delivery of services. And again, Tony will talk about this slightly later. So have a slide, please. So in terms of our programme, the new government approved our funding earlier in this year, subject to going through His Majesty's Treasury business cases, which enables us to commence construction of the new QEH in 2028 with a target opening of 2032. Whilst the programme is slightly longer than we had originally announced, we now actually have dedicated funding from the Treasury to actually deliver it. As I mentioned earlier, there are a couple of enabling projects that we have to do before 2028. Slide, please. So the first is the helipad relocation. This has commenced. We've completed phase 1, and we have now had confirmation of funding for the second phase from the National Helipad Charity Help UK. Work, subject to final planning approval, will commence in the summer, and this will be finished in this calendar year. Slide, please. This paves the way to the building of our multi-storey car park on the old Inspire site, starting soon after the helipad has moved, and will be operational by the end of 2027, in plenty of time for our new building to start in 2028. The multi-storey car park is not the only parking available across the site during construction and after. Our parking strategy and the numbers are dependent on the services we deliver now and also in the future, as well as what the local authority will allow us, giving consideration of the local road network, as well as a national requirement to move to greener travel. So I will now pass you on to Tony, who will give you more detail behind these designs.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. My name's Tony Platts. I'm the Associate Director of Nursing for the new QEH, which is a fantastically exciting role. And I'm in post so that I can bring my extensive clinical experience to the programme to make sure that it's clinically and operationally what we need in order to deliver care to you. So we've already talked about the fact that we're not just building a new hospital to replace our RAC. Clearly, that's a big driver behind this, and this is why we're on the programme. But in order for that huge investment into the hospital, it's really imperative that we can demonstrate that we can improve patient care and patient outcomes, that we are able to be transformative with how we deliver those services, so how we deliver that care, that the hospital is sustainable. So we've already talked about that net zero target that the NHS is expected to meet, that it will be a digitally advanced hospital. So at the time of opening, it will be one of the most digitally advanced hospitals in Europe, probably wider for a short period of time until everyone else catches up. So that's massively exciting. And all of this is underpinned with our fantastic workforce and how we can empower our workforce in order to work in the hospital. So I wanted to just take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what that design might look like. So on the next slide, I've got a very grainy photograph of what the new single rooms could well look like. So I do apologise for the image not being as clear as it should be. And I'm conscious that this is being recorded, but I'll share with you anyway. This is one of the central teams, so the new hospital team's images of the single bedroom that I took a sneaky shot of so that I could share it with you today. We're waiting for these to be released so that we can engage more fully on the detail of those designs. But I think it's nice to just have a start of that image in our heads, so that we're all aware of what we're talking about, really. I think the change to single bedrooms is going to be a significant shift in how we deliver our care. But it's really just to make you aware that this isn't new. So England are actually really far behind globally in our position on single bedrooms. It was proposed from the national team and a case was put to government, and that was agreed that all hospital builds moving forward and as part of the new hospital programme would be 100% single bedrooms. I just really wanted to talk a little bit more about that and why it's really important. So it's very much focused around that privacy and dignity in the new hospital and bringing the family in and being really family-centred care. So we know that it can be quite difficult sometimes to have your family able to stay and be part of your care because of how constrained the physical environment can be in our bays in particular. So by having a single bedroom and space for that family support, we're able to provide that care, which I think is a really amazing opportunity, because being in hospital can be quite a scary experience, because when you're at your most unwell, you feel at your most vulnerable. So we're able to support that, and that's not only in the bedrooms on the ward, but also intensive care will be those single bedrooms, and so will our neonatal cots, with all the associated living space and support space that you would expect in those really highly critical areas. So our NICU and our ICU will have the ability to support families with those short stays where their loved ones might be most critical. It's also really important that we can manage infection control really much more easily with our single rooms, and a lot of learning from the pandemic, as you would expect. We are aware, though, that nursing patients in single bedrooms is going to be different, and we know that we need to really do a really comprehensive piece of work around what those staffing models look like, so that we can have really learned from others that have implemented this, so that we can do this as safely as possible. We also want to take the opportunity to make sure that patients don't feel isolated when they're in single bedrooms. So it's a very different experience. So again, we've talked about bringing in family members, but that won't apply to everybody. And we need to think about how we use our volunteers differently, and how we use digital tools, again, to help support with any isolation. It's really important to note, though, that these bedrooms for everybody aren't somewhere that you have to stay and remain. So there will be shared space on the wards, so that for those patients that are able, they'll be able to have that social element to their care as well. All of the design principles are very much around making sure that there's increased productivity and more efficiency around how we deliver our care for patients, so that we're able to spend more time at the bedside and less time doing some of those other tasks that aren't necessarily what you need qualified members of staff to do. So it's all around that efficient space. It's also about making sure that the whole hospital is really accessible for everybody. So I've commented there on a dementia-friendly design, and it's really taking the principles around that good design and applying that to everywhere in the hospital. So when we're looking at flooring, at worktop surfaces, at door handles, etc., it doesn't make a difference to me at the moment with my health what the floor surfaces might be like, but for someone who's got dementia, the choice around that floor surface can be really important around how they can safely manage to navigate our site. And it's just about being really conversant to those needs, so that we're not excluding any of those patients in our population, and we're making the hospital accessible. I just really wanted to talk, before we go on to the next slide, around the separation of flows. So what this is talking about is, at the moment, if you visit our hospital, you'll know that we only have one corridor in order to move our goods around the site, our patients around the hospital, and our staff. So all of that happens on a shared corridor. In the new hospital, the concept is that all of those flows will happen in separate areas. So patients will have their own corridors in which they will be transported throughout the organisation. Visitors will have theirs, and goods and your estates and facilities will have their separate flows and their separate associated lifts. So if you're a patient in a bed and going for an x-ray, for example, you aren't going to bump into someone who is taking the bins, for example. So really focused on that improved patient experience and that improved care. So if we could just look at the next slide, please. This is very much around every area within our hospital, and how we're going to deliver this care is going to have to undergo a programme of transformation, because working in a hospital that's designed very differently and has a whole raft of digital technology available to us, we will be working very differently. So, and it will feel different to our staff, and it will feel different to our patients. So it's really important that that transformation is really well planned and that's really well managed, so that we're all ready to move and operate in that new hospital when we open the doors. Key to this is around the design being really flexible. We don't know what the future of healthcare looks like. When I started my training, it would have felt very futuristic to be thinking that you might have a hip replacement and be out of hospital on the same day. We know that, you know, we're not talking huge amount of years ago that you were in hospital for a week plus for having your appendix out, for example. So we know that care and is changing all the time. So we need that design of the hospital to be really flexible to meet those changing needs, so that if there is a change in services, we aren't having to then make big changes to the layouts of our hospital environment. We know that by being more efficient, we'll be able to reduce some of our waiting lists, for example, because we'll be applying the get it right first time principles to our care. So we already do a lot of this work in the hospital at the moment, but the new hospital will really underpin the ability for us to really drive those improvements, which will be fantastic for our patients. We know that having improved clinical adjacencies really helps with that efficiency, but also really helps with both staff and patient experience. So this is about the process of working with the design teams and the clinical teams to make sure that those departments that sit next to each other, that it makes sense. I think that's really important. So for example, you would expect to have your A&E department having easy access to your intensive care unit. For example, for those patients that come in very sick, we want that transfer of care to be as quick and as efficient as we possibly can. So looking at the hospital environment, if we just give you a little flavour of what that could look like on the next slide. So this isn't taken from our new hospital, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea when we're talking about what that modern hospital space might look like. Being in hospital can be a really daunting prospect for a lot of patients, and the staff do everything they can to minimise that. But the environment is really important as well. So we know that we've got an environment at the moment that can be less than ideal for patients. We know that we've got props. We know that we've got a lot of building work going on. We know that Paul and his team are doing everything they can to make that as good as possible. And we've given some examples of that. But this new hospital really will be able to be a truly healing environment that's fit for purpose. We want the building to make sense. So where we're talking about clear wayfinding, this means that whilst there will be excellent signage, digital solutions to navigating your way around the hospital, it also should make sense. So from the moment you arrive to getting to your destination, the building should be able to help you navigate where you need to go. We all know, for example, if you go to an airport, a modern airport, that facility will guide you through where you need to go. The same with other big industrial areas. Theme parks are an excellent example, although sadly being in hospital won't be quite the same experience. But you know where to go, where to present yourself, etc. So it's those same principles. We've already talked about having that access to landscape and access to views. We know that access to green space is really important to our patients and to our staff, and we will, wherever we can, make that connection possible. We know that will be challenging with a hospital design that is more stories than we are used to currently, but that doesn't mean that it can't be achieved. We're just going to have to work really hard and engage with you and our staff to work out how best to deliver that. We also know that being in hospital can be really noisy. Patients will often complain about not having great quality sleep. So whilst we've got the single bedrooms that will help with that, also just being in an environment that is comfortable, is quieter, is calmer, all has that positive impact on how you feel about the care that you're receiving. But also how staff feel about working in that environment. Can be really busy environments that staff are working in, and often that can add to just how tiring that shift can be by being in that incredibly loud environment. So by bringing all of that sensory overload down, the outcomes become much more positive. And that's the same principles around daylight and how that feels. So if we talk about our workforce, on the next slide, please. Oh, digital. I've missed myself out on my notes. That's fine. So we've talked about how technology is going to be incredibly advanced in our new hospital. And what I wanted to do was talk you through some of those examples. So there are 49 intelligent hospital capabilities. I didn't think you'd appreciate me going through all 49, but I did think that we would be able to just pick out some examples of how some of these technologies that we'll be bringing in will help support what I've talked about up till now. So how it might feel as a patient and how it might feel as a member of staff and how that interacts. So the concept of a smart hospital building is that intelligent building that, like I said, helps support us with our tasks. So I'm sure all of you will have come into the hospital and not been able to locate a piece of kit. So whether that's a wheelchair, so often we'll get stopped in a corridor, people looking for wheelchairs, or if you're a member of staff working on the ward, that piece of equipment that is shared perhaps between various spaces, which is absolutely understandable and right, but you don't always know where that piece of equipment's gone. So you'll have nursing staff or support staff trying to locate these pieces of equipment so that they can deliver that care at the bedside. So by having all of the equipment tagged, it means that we'll be able to easily locate where that equipment is. So your teams will be able to do that on their handheld devices. So that clearly reduces that time, that wasted time, and means that we're able to get the piece of equipment to you as quickly as we possibly can, but also that we're not off trying to locate a wheelchair, etc., because we'll know where those things are. So it sounds small, but actually there's quite a lot of time saving in that piece of technology and that tech. So the same with intelligent building management systems. So this is very much estates focused, that these two examples on here, but there is a huge team that work really hard to keep our hospitals operational, to keep them safe, to keep them places that are well maintained and using energy efficiently, for example. So we know by having these digital systems in place and by allowing AI to help support us with managing that information, that the teams will be able to be really proactive with their maintenance and their safety, and make sure that the hospital is as energy efficient as it possibly can be. So it will help us to be able to monitor the temperature, energy use, light use, etc., etc. So you can see the efficiencies around that. So if we look to the next slide, these are some examples of what those digital tools look like and feel like for you as a patient. So I'm sure some of you are quite familiar with the NHS app, and increasingly the NHS app will be where you'll be able to find lots of your information about your care. So we know the NHS is pledging to increase accessibility and usage of the NHS app, and we'll be able to utilise that to really help with that digital front door. So this is how you will be able to book appointments, be able to find out some information about symptoms, and really understand what your healthcare journey might look like. We're also able to put software onto handheld devices that help support with your management. So it might be that we are able to have your information about your pre and post-op exercise routine, for example, or how to manage your medications. And all of that will be supported by our teams at the hospital, but it just reduces that, where it's appropriate, that face-to-face appointments, but also you've got that information. So if you need to share that with your family, with your doctor, with anyone who else is involved in your care, you've got that in your hand. We already talked a little bit about those single bedrooms and what they might look like. And really central to that is having some version of an integrated bedside terminal. So this goes much further than just having a TV in your room, which I know for lots of our patients, that would be great in itself. This is taking that much, much further. This is about being able to have not only that entertainment system, but also being able to control your own environment. So if you want your room warmer, cooler, the lights off, if you want to communicate with staff, if you want to access your records, you should be able to do all of that within your own room. Now, clearly this is quite a significant change from where we are now, but we have time, and very much part of our role in the new QEH team, but in that wider organisation transformation team, is to help support our patients and our staff with this transformation journey. So we're only at the very beginning, so I don't want anyone to be too concerned, and we will help support this transition as we move through the programme. So just the third slide on digital, please. Patient safety. So patient safety is absolutely at the heart of everything we're wanting to achieve, both in the current QE, absolutely, and in the new hospital. That doesn't change. These were just some examples of how those digital technologies will help support that. So we've talked about those single bedrooms. Because it's such a big change, I make no excuses for the fact that we keep referring back to it. I think it's really important. So one of the ideas around supporting patients and supporting safety and supporting those new ways of working is by having a digital overlay to those single bedrooms, so that we're able to collect as much information on what's happening in those rooms and report that back to those nursing staff. So it might be around having sensors in beds, for example, that will help alert staff if patients were behaving in a particular way that might alarm them to think that they were at risk of falling. So that wouldn't need to be something that was enacted for me, for example, at the moment, if I needed to come into hospital. But for those patients that we know are really at high risk of falls, the more information and the more tools we can put into place to help support us, the better. But clearly this doesn't negate the need for us for people to be looking after people. That absolutely still needs to happen. We'll have an operational control centre. So we already have one of these, but this will be far more digitally advanced and will be live. So this will be live information that will be reporting into this command centre, which will help us inform how we're going to manage patient care. So if we just simply look at the process of discharge, for example, the bed will be tagged. There'll be information within that room that will tell us when that patient is ready for their discharge. When that patient leaves the hospital site, we'll know, and we'll be able to live stream all of that information into the command centre, who will be able to deploy porters to go and pick up the next patient from A&E, for example, and bring them to the ward. There'll be a cleaning team that will already have been deployed to have that bedroom ready. The nursing team will be advised of the handover from A&E, and all of that will be able to happen without what happens at the moment, which is often lots and lots of time spent on the phone trying to coordinate that. So again, it's releasing that time so that those teams can concentrate on that patient-facing job. And just to finish off this section, my favourite one, which is about ambient voice recognition and an AI function to that as well. So we have been using dictation in healthcare for a really long time. We've been recording patient conversations with clinicians for a long time. That's not particularly new. The part around this that's innovative, and it's being trialled in quite a few hospitals across the country, is the fact that this makes documentation completely hands-free. So this allows the clinician and you to have a conversation about your care needs, and for that to be captured, for it to be translated into medical formatting, for want of a better word, and for that to form part of your record, and you actually will be able to be part of that experience and part of that record keeping. So it's all be done in completely live time, and it will take away the need to have that computer screen in between you and the person that you're receiving care for. So again, really quite transformative. So clearly lots of changes, lots of really exciting things. And I think if we just, the next slide, please. Clearly, none of this can happen without our excellent workforce. So we know we have a really fantastic workforce here at QE already, but we do know that we have some areas that are a little bit more difficult to recruit to than others. By having a new hospital and by having a hospital that's technologically advanced, the ambition is that will really attract some of that top talent. So those individuals who are wanting to work in a fantastic facility. We know the new hospital will support our education of our staff, not only with regard to our day-to-day training that we need to do, but also those ambitions around our School of Nursing and our teaching hospital status. We know that having a new hospital enhances staff well-being. So having spaces where you can rest, so having those close to where you work that are designated and dedicated to the workforce is really important. We know that having access to lovely outside space, landscape space, by it being a calm environment, all of those things make that better for staff well-being, and that ability to feel that you're able to deliver care in an improved environment as well. We know that we're going to need to support our workforce with this change, and that's absolutely part of the planning that we need to undertake as part of this programme of work. And we also know that it's going to offer us some really exciting job opportunities, not only as part of the programme and the transformation, but moving forward. So really exciting for everybody. And I hope that's just given a very broad overview of what some of that care might look like and feel like in the new hospital. So just to finish off this section, we've got a short video to show you, which is to give an idea of what that hospital might feel like. We're hoping it works. There's me talking about lots of digital innovations. We know that sometimes presenting videos on Teams can be a little bit challenging, but we hope it works. If it doesn't, we have got a link to it that we'll put in the chat, but I'm hoping it does, because it gives a lovely overview of what I've been talking about and just sort of summarises it. So fingers crossed, and let it play.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Peter. And a special thank you for the comms team. You can uncross your fingers now, as the video did work in the end. I hope everybody out there, you get to see a small snippet of what we've been working on in the last couple of years. Yes, the designs are concept, but they're backed by some really fantastic research and designs carried out by the National New Hospital team. We're interpreting some of those and putting them together for the real needs of the people within the Kings Lynn area and those needs for the future. This will be one of the most technologically advanced new hospitals in the country when this opens in Kings Lynn, along with the other 7 hospitals that will eventually be built. It's a fantastic opportunity and a possible once in a lifetime for people that go through that process. And we're committed to make sure that we do that in conjunction with our clinical teams, our non-clinical teams, and you, the public and patients that are going to be using it going forward. So thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. And we're happy to take some questions and we'll try and deliver all the answers we can. And if we don't know, we'll get back to you because we don't know everything, certainly at this point in time. So Laura, I'll hand over to you for any questions that may have come up.
Lovely. Thank you, Paul. We have got some great ones. Just a reminder, there's a Q&A section in the top toolbar. If you click on there, you can write your questions in the box. So if we start off with one for Tony, please. With the focus on plan for single rooms, will there still be any wards, as some patients might prefer to have company during their stay?
So the short answer is no. Because it's 100% single bedrooms, so that is everywhere. So the wards will be 32 bedded wards. There will be shared space, so there will be what used to be called a family room, you know, that day room, and the teams will be able to use that space how they see fit for the patients that they look after on their ward environment. So there will be that opportunity. Also, just worth noting that patients don't have to be confined to their rooms. So it's about encouraging patients to come out of their rooms to socialise. The ward space will be really, really big. So it's up to teams how they use some of that space flexibly for their patients and to reduce any isolation that they might feel. So I suppose it's about thinking about the fact that we can do something to mitigate that feeling, that not wanting to feel isolated. What we can't do is impose that single room concept on areas where it doesn't exist. So we can work with that. What we can't do is if we then need those single bedrooms, we can't impose them onto a shared ward environment, like an open ward. So I hope that answers the question.
That's great. Thank you very much. One for Peter now. There's been mention of net zero carbon benefits for the new hospital. What sort of green initiatives are you considering?
Well, there are a number of green initiatives that we're currently doing feasibilities on. So they are going deep into the ground. We are quite close to the thermal core in this area. So we're going to do some investigation into that. So we'll be looking at photovoltaic. We've obviously wind turbine, which we already have. As well as anything, and some of this is really difficult because the technology not necessarily out there yet. So we are keeping our eye on the new technology that's coming through to enable us to be the latest, to get the latest innovation to support that net carbon zero.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We've got one person who's put several questions on, so I'll go through those. Let's start with the helipad. Is the helipad not going to be on the roof to save ambulances sitting on site? I'm not sure who would like to take that one.
Paul's going to take it.
So I'm happy to work through some of these questions. I saw them come up, Laura, if I can.
Brilliant.
And then
Thank you.
if I get stuck, I will revert to my team. So the helipad not on the roof. We're not a major trauma centre. We know that in the original designs, we looked at putting a helipad on the roof. We get possibly 2 patients that actually need to come into the hospital within a year that need that kind of transfer. We worked extensively with the air ambulance, both ambulance services, to work out what was the best location. Between us as a team, not just the hospital, we chose the location that we're going to put it in. A lot of the transfers are that a lot of the patients go to are for transfer, but also for crew transfers. When you look at where King's Lynn is and the helipad we're proposing, strategically from a flight path point of view, it's perfect for that kind of handover. So building a raised helideck is really expensive. Manning one for the time period you have to is also really expensive. So are we using the money that we've got for the scheme wisely if we do something that we are going to use really, really infrequently, not for the benefit of the hospital, more for the benefit of the ambulance services? So that's the reason we've made the decision around that. The end-of-life suites prioritise families in need. I was fortunate enough to work with the teams on the end-of-life unit, so I know that we have got a dedicated team of end-of-life specialists led by a consultant nurse. They make the decision along with the nursing teams on the ward and the relatives as well to find the right time for when that transfer needs to happen. And it's done really sensitively, I have to say. I think going to single rooms mean more staff, but you'd say also single bed space and share ward seems confusing. I understand that might at the moment. Tony, I don't know if you want to mention anything that you've got before I go on to about equipment.
We know we've got a lot of work to do in this space, and that will absolutely be done with nursing leaders, with ward teams in how we're going to manage this change in staffing. I think it's important to note that it might be that we need to look at how we profile the staff and who delivers what on the ward. So we're not at the stage of the detail at the moment, but we're starting to have those conversations. We're starting to share that and receive learning from other organisations who have done this piece of work. So as we go into the detail, we'll be engaging with teams, with nursing, and other specialities across the organisation, so that we're all clear as we move forward and how we're going to do this. So yeah, I don't have all the answers, absolutely not at the moment, and this is very much a team approach for how we're going to manage that. So apologies if there's been any confusion. I suppose that sometimes comes out of the fact that we're not in the detail at the moment, so probably don't have it to share.
Thanks, Tony. The next question is a really interesting one about equipment being tagged. So at the moment, across our hospital at any given time, we will have equipment that's been popped around a corner, moved between a ward, and using that equipment efficiently is something we've really got to do. There's lots of reasons we want to know where all the pieces of equipment are. So what we mean by tagging is that at any given time, every single piece of equipment will be tagged and mapped across the hospital. So if a nurse turns around and that piece of equipment's not there, she'll be able to actively go and find exactly where that piece is mapped across the hospital, and that can be moved back into position, or she'll know that she can go and fetch it herself. It's about us tracking and tracing, but it allows us to maintain those items of equipment and also know the usage of them a lot more. So it really is. And you'd think that was state of the art, but it's not. There's already lots of hospitals up and down the country. And actually a lot of this technology has come from the Middle East, where they are tracked and traced. It's a great concept. I've seen it working, and I think it'll be a wonderful addition to the new hospital. Discharge. How will this work with prescription hospital taxes take patients home? What we're talking about is the new world. I think the flight deck, as we've called it, or the operations centre, is where sometimes we can make a real difference. To get the medicines ready for discharge, we use quite old-fashioned methods here at the QE, and we don't deny it. We're on a electronic journey towards electronic patient records. It takes time that it shouldn't need to. We'll have people literally walking and picking up bits of paper and moving them around. We won't have that in the new hospital. We'll have a fully electronic system that people will know. People know about that discharge. Transport home will always be something that we've got to organise, and whether that's by asking the question of whether transport can be provided by the patient's relatives, or whether we need to do it because the patient might need support during that. So, but we'll be smarter at it, because some of the stuff that Tony talked about is we'll know when patients are ready for discharge, because it will have been entered. Now, that won't be a message that comes down because one of our flow team has walked around the ward that day. It'll be live information into our comm centre. So how are we planning on advertising the workforce required and where these going to come from? That's why we rely on you. That's why we're doing these sessions. We're really excited at QE. There's loads of opportunities in this build for people to pick up new skills and work with the very latest technology. And if you had the opportunity, then would that tempt you to come here when there may be you want to choose your career path? We're hoping so. We already work with the colleges and universities and local schools. It's about making sure that this is on the mind of everybody when they think about where they're going to go with their career moving forward. And thank you for the good luck message. Yes, I think we would need some of it, but thank you for your support on that. Laura, hand back to you now to govern us through the questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul. That was really helpful. Is the current hospital structure going to last another 7 years?
Okay, one for me, I think, as the Director of Estates and Facilities, we've got to make it last. We know so much more about this building. We've taken the time to learn so much more in the last 2 to 3 years with extensive surveys of all of our services, everything from our nurse call systems to our drainage and our IT systems. We know what we need to fix. We know what we need to keep going. We know what will last. And you'll see as we move forward, we will spend money on some of those areas. Our lifts were installed the day we opened. We know they aren't going to last the next 7 years. We're going to be replacing them this year. They're the type of decisions, difficult decisions we've got to make, because how do we use the taxpayers' money, our money, to the best we can? We know they're not going to last. We know we need to make that decision. And they're the difficult decisions the estates and facility teams have got lined up between now and as we move towards the new hospital.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got quite a technical question here. I hope I read it correctly. So the single patient room photo showed several potential ligature points at height. Presume these will all be checked at the appropriate time to have as having breakaway fixings?
Yeah,
I'm seeing some nods.
That's okay. Yeah, really important. Really important to keep our patients safe, isn't it? So we know we have patients in the organisation who are at risk of harming themselves. It's really important that those rooms are safe environments for them. So yes, absolutely. Yes, I am told, I've asked this question, this has been raised a lot of times to the national teams, and I'm told yes. But we're going into a phase of having that more detailed information given to us by the national teams, particularly around those single rooms and the ensuite bathrooms. As part of that process of having that information shared with us, we've got the opportunity to go through those designs, critique them, ask questions, and put those challenges back to the national team as part of that process. So please look out for the next wave of comms around that, because we'll be asking you guys, specialists across the organisation, to help us with that process. So it's already gone through really rigorous centralised testing, if you like, of that space, and had lots of subject matter experts offering their critique of that space, and we're just getting the opportunity to go through that process as well. So it's really rigorously reviewed. So I hope that's helpful.
Lovely, thank you, Tony. One for Peter now on the multi-storey car park. As electric cars are a lot heavier than petrol, has this been allowed for in the multi-storey car park? And also about the risk of fire risk with electrical cars as well.
So yes, the car park will be built to the latest standards, which include not only just the size of the floor plates, but also the wideness of cars as they've moved now to much more SUV type cars. So the spaces will be slightly wider, again up to new national standards. In terms of fire, we will be having a sprinkler system. So again, we will meet all current fire regulations in terms of the building. In fact, our car park will be an exemplar for the new designs that all hospitals will have to abide for in the future.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Peter. We've got one here around training. When are you going to start training on the new hospital?
So, wow, what a question. It's a great question. I think we're starting to do it now, actually. Really excited that we're socialising everything that we've seen here. We've been working with the clinical teams across the site for the last 2 years. So part of that is how we do that. We're looking to be constructing spaces on site that are similar or exactly how the new spaces will be. And we'll be introducing teams into that. But as we move towards the new clinical electronic clinical systems, we'll be starting that training now for that too. So we're trying to prepare our staff in lots of different ways for what this new hospital will be like. And part of that is by bringing them in now to ask us the questions, just as you're asking us tonight. All part of that is how we bring the hospital to reality and to life in people's eyes. Because when they ask those questions, that's how we know that we've got them, we've hooked them in, and Tony and the team are talking to them about what it might mean for them. So the training starts now, really.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul. One final one, which is a nice positive note, I think, to potentially end on. Could you reconfirm the target opening date? Very excited and privileged to be in this region to be part of this project. Peter.
Yeah, the target opening date is 2032. So we're looking to start construction in 2028 and we will be opening in 2032.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, that's all the questions that we've had come through so far. So thank you everyone for popping those on. I'm just going to put a link to a response form in the Q&A. So and there's a QR code on the screen. So if people are able to complete that, it's really great to get your views on these kind of events. So thank you. I'll hand back over to Paul.
So just a huge thank you for taking your time out to listen to the presentation and the interaction from the questions. You know, this is a landmark project within Kings Lynn. The team are dedicated, the hospital is dedicated to delivering this for you. We'll work as closely and as hard and fast as we can to make sure we deliver a new hospital all the time, making sure that the place we've got now is safe to use. Thank you for your time. Please enjoy the rest of the sunshine this evening. Thank you.